Obviously an Evernote clone. Anybody use Evernote? Then maybe it's not terribly obvious. It's a note-taking app. That much is probably obvious. And it looks pretty fancy. Down here we got this little button to log out. Let's log out. Ooh. Hey nerd, you like notes? Sign in with GitHub. Signing in. And there we have our notes. So I don't know if you're watching the location bar. It's pretty small up here. But when I sign out, it's /sign-in. Once I sign in, it's /notes. I click on a specific note, and now it's notes / the particular ID of that note. Let's change this one to give it a title. Groovy. Okay, so what if I delete it? Watch the URL. So it goes away and the URL updates to be just plain notes, and I'm at the screen where I could enter a new one. I don't have to click this note to get to the empty form. If I'm looking at an existing note and I want to get there, then I can hit that button, and that's what it does. So let's create a new note and watch the location bar. I less than 3. Oh, look, it already changed. I less than 3 React. As soon as we created it, as soon as there was anything in there, it gave it an ID and it updated the path. So are these paths for real? Components are rad. Let's try opening this in a new tab. Navigating straight to that note. And sure enough, it loads that one up. So the routes seem to work. And that's basically all it does. If I have more than will fit on the screen, let's add at least one more. And we get a nice little scrolling on just this area. So what do you think? Is it almost overwhelming how much this does? Does this seem like a lot more complicated than what we've done so far? Think of it this way. I don't know whether that was a yes or a no. Do you guys think you could build this? He believes in himself. So, what's the difference between this and a thing list? Other than the fact that it looks different. We have a list of things. We can edit those things. So, one difference. Yeah, Matt. Each one has formatting. So there is that. Other than that, it's not all that different. We have a list of things. We can edit those things. Instead of editing them in place right inside the list, we have another component that holds the form where we edit it. Big deal. We know how to pass data between components, right? So, yeah, it looks like instead of just having a title, they have a title and a body, probably. But the things in thing list had a title and completed, right, the check mark, and a date time. So data-wise, there's nothing all that complicated. I'll tell you, the formatting and stuff, there are components out there that kind of do it for you. The hard part, you still have to figure out how to use those components because they're not, they're not completely simple, but they're pretty easy. But that's about it, like just to look at this thing. The routing is a little more sophisticated. If we look, for example, let's copy this to our clipboard. Let's sign out, and then let's try to go there. it kicks us back to the sign-in page because we're not allowed to see that. So we didn't make it just throw an error or just not work or give us a blank screen if you tried to go to one you're not allowed to view. It kicks you to the sign-in screen. Make sense? That's a much better user experience. And if I'm already signed in and I just go to localhost 3000 instead of localhost 3000/notes, it redirects me to my notes, not to the sign-in page, because I'm already signed in. All right, so it figures some of that stuff out. So there's some usability flow type stuff that's a little nicer than some of the other apps, but it really doesn't do a whole lot that ThingList didn't do. So if we wanted to poke around, pretend we don't have access to the code, and try to figure out how this works, what could we do? Say again? One more time. Oh, inspect, yeah. Developer tools, right? Do not forget those are there. If you're running into a problem and you don't have your developer tools open, you need to open them. You can catch a lot of errors much faster that way. You might get an error message that basically tells you exactly how to fix it. So don't forget that those are there. So let's look at our React DevTools so we can see our components. So we've got browser router, no big surprise. This thing has routing. Router, route. Here's app. Let's see what we got on app. So we have a UID just like on ThingList. And we have notes just like we had things, right? And we have a bunch of notes with bodies. Looks like they're stored as HTML, but they're just strings. And we have an ID and we have a title. And looks like we have a Unix timestamp, a Unix epoch for when it was last updated, because it actually sorts them that way. If we make a change here, I'm so sad deserves an exclamation mark. So now that one moves to the top. So the things that you've edited most recently appear first in the list. It's kind of handy. They're the things you're most likely to want to look at next. Got history, location, and match, of course, because we're using React Router. All right, we've got a switch. We've seen switch before, right? Now it looks like there's something a little crazy going on here. Private route is not something that's built into React Router. It's one that we wrote in this project. We'll talk about it in a minute. But ultimately, that includes this route. Path is /notes. And it just has a bunch of stuff related to routing. Inside there, we have main. Main looks like it has some props that are of some significance. Looks like it has access to all the notes. Looks like it has methods for remove note, save note, and sign out. Makes sense. We shouldn't be surprised to see that. Drill into that. And if you hover over each of these, you'll see nav. See the blue area? That's just that bar on the left. That includes the logo and the add new note button and the logout button. So drill into nav and we'll see there's the logo. Here's a link to /notes. And that is the little plus button there. And then we have this user links component that contains this button. So our nav component here, the only prop it has is sign out, because it has to do that, right? The sign out button needs to be able to do that. Then we have notes list, which is this in the middle. No big surprise, I hope. What props would you expect to see on notes list? What's a prop you would expect to see on notes list? Notes? You have a list of notes without notes, right? And that's it. Why doesn't it have to do more? Well, all we're doing is listing them out, and then each of these is, unsurprisingly, probably a note component. And what do you think's in that note component? And let me hover over these. You'll see these note components. That's not the form on the right still. That's just each individual note inside the note list. So what do you think those need? Prop-wise. So what's inside each of those? It looks like it prints out the title and the body, right? So we better have that individual note. Yep, the only prop it has is note. Just a single note. Because if we drill into this, we see there's just a nav link to /notes/that ID. So the note component doesn't need anything else besides the note. And then, besides notes list, we have another switch with another route, /notes/ a parameter ID. You used parameters in your routes yesterday. And then inside there, another component called note form. Now, note form is going to have a few more props, right? Because it has to be able to create and delete and stuff like that. So it's got the stuff from the router, and it has the list of all the notes. Gosh dang it. And it doesn't know it has. So note form has all the stuff that it gets from the router, and it has notes, the list of notes. It has remove note, a function that was passed down as a prop, and save note, which was passed down as a prop. And it has a couple pieces of state too. Any big surprises there? We got a list of things, which is made up of the individual things, and when you click them, they populate a form. So let's have a closer look at how some of it works.